The residents of Western have had enough. Through cutbacks, they've lost the rail line and the police station, the post office is under threat, and now the Commonwealth Bank is determined to close the local branch. Today they rallied outside the bank, a united show of support for the branch. Those who will be most disadvantaged by the closure will be the elderly. They'll have to catch a bus to nearby Curry. Residents are determined to stop the closure any way they can. Last week, Cessnock Council unanimously voted to withdraw the city's $29 million account from the Cessnock branch of the Commonwealth and deposit it at Western. Mayor Marie Callaghan revealed today that the bank has refused their deposit. Council will now call for tenders. The closure of Western is part of a national restructuring plan. According to State Director Dick Perkins, the bank is not a viable operation. The doors will close for the last time on February 11. Residents have until then to change the decision.
Can't afford to let this go. Really, bit by bit, they're taking all the necessities of the town away from us, aren't they?
Jodie McKay, NBN News.
Roanoke's buoy the winner, but it had to withstand a late charge from Newcastle horse Flitter. Unfortunately, due to a technical problem, we cannot bring you any pictures of the race, but Roanoke paid $5.20 and $2.40. No TV problems at Sandown though for their feature event, the $60,000 Editive Stakes. And tonight, don't forget a full 9-event program at the Newcastle Paceway. Tipster Gary Harley recommends number 4 in race 4. First race to take advantage of the steady gust was the junior monohulls, and they got off to a picture-perfect start. But within seconds of the boats all heading off in the same direction, skippers started their tacking duels. When it came to the first buoy, it was the usual traffic jam as crews raced to get into a spinnaker run. But as soon as they were up, the battle changed to a game of wind stealing. And while the monos screamed down towards the city, the catamarans were coming at them head on. There were a few tense moments, but nobody collided. Although the Sydney crews didn't win everything, they went home impressed with the chance to sail on a non-crowded harbour.
The entertainment was both on and off the harbour. Scouts scaled giddy heights while others found a different way of flying high. For spectators, there was a wide range of activities on the water, boys with their toys and those who preferred to test their skill against the clock.
It's not very often we can bring the harbour to life like this, once a year, and it's a totally different place.
The Dragon Boat race got off to a rocky start, with one team swamped as the others scrambled for the lead. They were rescued by more conventional means. The fun will continue over the weekend.
Well, tonight, of course, we have the laser spectacular at 9 o'clock tonight. And tomorrow we have more Formula boats, more ski boats, and we have more Navy divers, more cruises on the harbour. It's all go tomorrow as well.
It's not just the players who are preparing for the rugby league season. 70 referees from the Central Coast to the Mid-North Coast gathered in Port Macquarie this weekend for a coaching clinic. Some of Sydney's top referees passed on their tips.
All we're trying to do is evaluate and make our referees perform at a higher level.
The program for the weekend involved both lectures and practical sessions with a wide range of topics covered. Among the guest speakers, Ian Parnaby, a first-grade referee in the Winfield Cup, and Dennis Spagarino, who's on the New South Wales referee coaching panel.
They're lecturing us in the various aspects of physical fitness, positioning, mini-mod football, appointments, sincerity on the field, how to communicate with players and coaches.
The annual clinic was also open to people interested in becoming rugby league referees.
It was the night of nights for the 22nd Country Music Awards, and amongst some familiar faces, one young star was shining brightly.
And the winner is Lee Kernaghan, 3 Chain Road.
Lee Kernaghan won a record 4 golden guitars. Not even Slim Dusty has matched that. Lee shared Vocal Group or Duo of the Year, won Vocalist of the Year, Song and Album of the Year.
And that if you want to be an Australian country singer, you write Australian lyrics, and that's what I've learnt from Lee.
The best female vocalist was Gina Jeffries.
Then out of the sky, 2 stars fell.
4,000 fans packed into the show, waving, cheering and tapping along. Already a well-known country performer, Lee Kernaghan could now follow the lead of another golden guitar winner. It was from here that James Blundell went on to become a household name. Peter Ryan, NBN News.
If it floated, people flocked to see it. Steamers and sailing ships, veteran craft and $1 million of the latest designs. Amid the bustle there was a sense of bygone days with timber boats and a fisheye view of an old-time diving suit. A World War II amphibious army duck captured the curiosity of passerbys. Vintage machinery and fairground attractions stood out against the city's skyline. Last night, laser lights and fireworks burst against the dark, almost outshining a full moon. Organisers estimated about 50,000 people crammed the Newcastle foreshore for the lighting spectacular. Thousands more found vantage points on the Stockton side. Newcastle's old pilot cutter, Girralong, made a return trip to the port for a grand parade of vessels this afternoon. There were a few gaps in the sail past, with the port's newest fleet of tugs remaining tied up alongside. For high-powered action, a full report on the Formula One racing still to come in the bulletin.
Less than 12 months after the Peninsula Plaza was destroyed by fire, a new complex is being constructed on the Blackwall Road site to house specialty shops in addition to the Woolworths store. The president of the Peninsula Chamber of Commerce is delighted the site has been utilised after the devastating blaze.
There was a lot of debate about what was going to happen, whether the owner would try and sell it on as a flat site for redevelopment, but as it's turned out, we're going to get a new centre fairly quickly, really.
The new complex follows the recent openings of McDonald's, KFC and Franklin's at Woy Woy. Those outlets have recruited 400 people. Woolworths is expected to open within the next 6 months, offering 200 positions.
Well, a lot of those jobs are young unemployed. You look at the part-time work through the supermarkets. That's the type of work which is going to get the young people, out in the workforce again. And through the dollars that are being spent there, I suppose it's growth right through the economy.
Gosford CES is conducting recruitment campaigns and plans to employ staff about a month before the supermarket's opening. The development is set to lure shoppers from competitive centres at Gosford and Erina, both having recently opened multi-million-dollar extensions. Jenny Crouch, NBN News.
It was a traditional opening with members of the judiciary and legal profession dressed in full court regalia. Making their way past the informal guard of prefects from Newcastle Grammar School, the guests were met with the sonorous harmonies of the church choir. But the remainder of the ceremony was far less celebratory. In his sermon, Monsignor Sims voiced his concerns about the moral decline of our society.
If you just listen to people, watch television, for example, every night of the week, you will see there a decline in moral values about family life and respect for life, sexual immorality prevalent there.
Monsignor Sims says it's critical that the basic principles of civil law be based on God's law.
Morality doesn't depend just on what I think or what someone else thinks, that there is a moral law, we call it a natural law, that God has given us.
The service was well attended by members of Parliament, clergy and the general public. Liz Rogers, NBN News.
Discussion over the weekend was centred on these 3 surveys which address community attitudes in Lake Macquarie. The aim was to come up with a plan which would take the city into the future.
Everything we do from here on in, the councillors and the staff are given a commitment to decisions that will be taken will be based on that quality lifestyles being in the forefront of people's minds in making decisions.
Also discussed was the underutilised potential for tourism in the city, the creation of more parks and the development of a multi-purpose sports centre. Just where it will go has yet to be decided. Council will also look at rationalising some services. Baby health centres and rarely used community halls may be sold off, while other infrastructure will be improved.
Instead of having a stack of little facilities dotted all over the city, to get some major facilities that the community can use far more in a far more satisfactory manner.
It's easy to talk about the future direction of Lake Macquarie, but making it work is another thing. Council General Manager Robert Gray, however, is confident it will happen. He says Council is committed to making it work.
Whatever we put down in writing, we must achieve, and we must report back to the community on a regular basis what those achievements are.
With a rising tide and rescue boats unable to reach them because of rough seas, Alan Johnston and his 12-year-old son Mark could do little more than cling grimly to a rock and flotation buoys thrown to them by lifesavers. Mr Johnston and his two sons had been fishing in a gulf at the southern end of Catherine Hill Bay when he was swept off rocks. One of the boys tried to help his father and was also washed in.
Position of the two people in distress fortunately was such that we could deploy our down-the-wire crewmen directly down the cliff face over the top of the two people, and one by one we winched them to safety.
Father and son were delivered safely to shore and treated for cuts and abrasions. At the Newcastle Rescue Base today, a pleasant surprise for the helicopter crew, a thank you card and cheque from the unemployed Alan Johnston and his family. The donation was gratefully accepted, but the rescue service warned of the dangers of rock fishing.
Almost a cliche with rock fishermen, they turn their back and the freak wave gets them. These sorts of situations would cause nowhere near the fatalities that they do if people would take the simple precaution of either wearing a life jacket or even having something relatively cheap like an inflated tyre.
Before the coroner's court today was Meryl Jorgensen, the mother of Alison Parker. During the last 2 days, there has been conflicting evidence given to the court as to whether Miss Parker was with Alison Newstead the night she disappeared. Mrs. Jorgensen told the court she's certain her daughter was in bed at around 10 o'clock on the night of the 6th of October. She later admitted she couldn't be sure if it was the night in question. Counsel for the Newstead family, Peter Cleaves, asked her if she knew her 17-year-old daughter had been underage drinking in licensed premises and had been having an affair with an engaged man, Michael Self. Mrs. Jorgensen replied to both questions, yes, I'd warned her about it. Mr. Cleaves also asked Mrs. Jorgensen if she knew her daughter had been using speed at the age of 15 and supplying cannabis to other people. Mrs. Jorgensen told the court, I have found out, like every other parent in Cessnock. Toward the end of his cross-examination, Sergeant Lloyd asked Mrs. Jorgensen whether she would reflect on her evidence if it was possible for the state to grant indemnity to her daughter Alison Parker. Mrs. Jorgensen was asked to go home and discuss the offer with Alison. Both will appear in court at a later date. Also presented to the court the results of toxicology tests. An alcohol level of 0.11 was detected and unconfirmed traces of cannabis were found in Miss Newstead's body. Dr. Andrew Dawson, director of Newcastle's toxicology unit, told the court that if cigarettes, cannabis and alcohol were mixed with asthma medication, a life-threatening reaction may have occurred. This would have been exacerbated if amphetamines were also taken, but so far tests have not revealed the presence of amphetamines. For Alison's family, there's still no definite answers as to what happened to their daughter in October last year. Her naked body was found dumped on the outskirts of Cessnock 6 days after she disappeared. The inquest continues tomorrow.
NBN's cardiopulmonary resuscitation program, which received unprecedented response in northern New South Wales earlier this year, is now going corporate. Cooks Hill Surf Lifesaving Club has formed a Project Restart CPR instruction team to teach corporation employees the lifesaving skill. The first company to participate is MMI Insurance. The instructors volunteer their time. It's a community service Head Instructor Terry Cosgrove sees as vital.
It doesn't take that long to learn the basics. We've done the corporate people here today, and it's only taken an hour for them to sort of know the basic rules of CPR.
Well, it's valuable time taken out of work. I mean, it could save a life one day, and it could be their family or a friend, anywhere. And it can even happen in the workplace.
Around 660,000 people live in the Hunter Valley. It's estimated only 10% of them know CPR. Terry wants to help change that, starting with corporations. He's already received inquiries from 3 other companies.
Any members of the public can request through the surf club, and if we have enough people, we will be running courses at the surf club, possibly Tuesday or Thursday nights.
Anyone interested can contact Cooks Hill Surf Club. Catherine Lamond, NBN News.
"17-year-old Alison Newstead died mysteriously in October last year. 6 days after she disappeared, her body was found hidden under sheets of corrugated iron at Pelton. A post-mortem examination could not determine how she died. Toxicology tests found alcohol in her body and unconfirmed traces of cannabis. In his statement to the court, Detective Sergeant Tony Hetherington said evidence compiled so far leads to the conclusion that Alison may have died from the administration of a drug such as amphetamines. However, there is no direct evidence as to who would have supplied the drug, what persons were present, and who was responsible for the disposal of her body. Alison's parents yesterday called for charges of manslaughter or murder to be laid against those who may have supplied their daughter with a drug. Over the last 5 days, some 30 witnesses have given evidence to the inquest. Some have told the court they saw Alison Parker with Alison Newstead on the night Miss Newstead disappeared. But Miss Parker maintained she was home in bed, a fact backed up in court by her mother, Meryl Jorgensen. Miss Parker has been offered indemnity against prosecution if she and her mother reflect on their evidence. Both will appear before the inquest at a later date, along with Roderick Rankin and Michael Self. Mr Rankin and Mr Self can't give evidence to the inquest until they've appeared in court on charges of supplying amphetamines.
At first, fishing co-ops dreaded the government's intention to deregulate the industry and lease its wholesale Sydney markets at Ultimo. But they've now realised that they may be best placed to take over the operation themselves.
A new cooperative will be formed, consisting of all the fishermen in New South Wales. They'll all be invited to take our shares, and we hope that many of the 2,000 fishermen will take up that offer.
The government is prepared to forestall deregulation of the sale of fish for 3 years once the successful tenderer takes over. This would allow a smoother transition of operations. So far, 3 interested groups are in the hunt for control of the business, responsible for selling 15 million tonnes of fish. The groups include the state's co-ops, Sydney wholesalers and crews from South Coast ports.
Next Friday in Sydney we have a meeting of our co-op association to decide which way we're going to approach the next stage. And I'm assuming that we'll probably consider a joint bid with the tenants, the Sydney Fish Market tenants. If that goes ahead, then we've got 8 weeks to put in a binding bid for the market.
A dozen Aboriginal leaders and the top police brass met at a special home for young Aborigines near Cessnock in the Hunter Valley. The home, Goodoga, caters for teenage Aborigines who have had problems with the law. The topic of the Police Aboriginal Council, stopping the rift between black and white.
These meetings are really important to both police, community and especially to Aboriginal people.
Police Commissioner Tony Lau chaired the meeting. The Commissioner says the force is adapting to the needs of Aboriginal people. That involves more training for recruits, using more discretion on the beat, in particular keeping Aborigines out of jail where possible.
And we're looking at a range of things that are alternatives to going into custody. We trialled one recently at the music festival in Tamworth, where instead of being arrested and put in a cell and awaiting bail, the police issued a court appearance notice in the street telling you to come to court.
Both parties accept such plans can't change societies overnight. Peter Ryan, NBN News.
A man aged in his mid-20s held up the credit union in Charlestown Square. Brandishing a shortened firearm, he demanded money. He escaped with an undisclosed amount of cash and was last seen running in the direction of Charlestown Mall. Detectives have interviewed witnesses and are viewing vision captured by a security camera. The man was wearing a white t-shirt, blue shorts, blue hat and dark sunglasses.
The Commonwealth Bank says the fate of the 55-year-old Western branch near Cessnock was inevitable, but the small coalfields community was not prepared to go down without a memorable fight and a fitting send-off. After losing its rail line and police station, some say the bank's closure marks yet another nail in the town's coffin.
84-year-old people shouldn't have to do this. The bad news is we're failed. We haven't saved the bank. The good news is we're not going to give up.
Angry at the closure, the town says its senior citizens will suffer the most.
Just going over to Curry all the time and it's going to cost a lot more money.
They're too old, frail. It's shocking what they're doing.
The burial over, 5 pensioners, including a Cessnock City Councillor, entered the bank to stage a sit-in. The men involved in the sit-in have vowed to stay until they're removed. They say it's not their first experience. 3 are veterans of the 1929 Rothbury riot. At 5 o'clock, the doors closed for the last time. The pensioners joined by women and children.
Singleton Army Base is playing host to some unlikely recruits. This weekend, more than 100 of the Knights players, administrative and executive staff are in camp. Their mission, to build commitment and solidarity among club members and set common goals for the 94-95 football season. Having representatives from all sections of the club involved in a pre-season camp is believed to be a first for Winfield Cup sides. For the players, at times they must have wondered if it can possibly get any tougher. Mark Sargent pushing himself to the limit, Brad Godden and teammates offering their captain morale-boosting support. Then, after the taxing times, a chance to refuel. With the help of Army expertise, a full schedule has been organised for the visitors, their day starting around 5:30 a.m. and lasting till well after the sun goes down. Catherine Lamond, NBN News.
"80-year-old Jim Comerford and his 2 mates, Coogan Frame and Jeff Maybury, were weary this morning after a last-ditch effort to save their local bank. Before the doors of the Commonwealth at Western closed for good, a small band of locals staged a sit-in.
There's blokes stayed underground in stay-in strikes in the Commonwealth for up to a month. And people outside kept asking us, when we'll be out. We said we'll be home for Christmas.
But the protest was over by about 10:30 last night when the group was moved by police.
That we had to be actually physically moved.
So impressed were the protesters with the way the police handled the matter, they want to make them honorary members of the Retired Mine Workers Union. Despite the mock funeral procession earlier in the day, Marie Callaghan says this latest blow doesn't mean the death of the town.
I think we need to put this behind us and get out there and find another bank or another credit union or financial institution that wants to come to this city.
As families arrived at Stardust Circus, they were confronted by members of the Animal Liberation Organisation. The group is protesting about the use of animals in any form of entertainment.
These animals are wild in nature. Even though they might have been bred in captivity, they are essentially wild and they should never be kept in cages like this.
It's a claim Lindsay Lennon refutes.
Animals in captivity live longer than what they do in the wild. They're well treated. Any time they get ill or have an injury, we have a vet straight to them.
Even so, Animal Liberation plans to lobby Newcastle City Council to ban circuses and rodeos in the local area.
I ban them in Newcastle. I mean, we bring animals through for the public to see who don't have the time to go to the zoo in Sydney or whatever.
Meanwhile, a rally was held on the Central Coast to discuss the proposal to declare 350,000 hectares of state government land wilderness. The meeting at Gosford League Club Oval was attended by representatives of four-wheel drive and horse riding groups opposed to the decision. Speakers included member for Monaro, Peter Cochrane, and Jeff Priest from the Australian Conservation Foundation.
A fortnight ago, blooms in the Severn and Beatty rivers by concerned residents and fishermen. Severn Council took samples and government analysts confirmed the blooms are toxic. Test results revealed on Friday that parts of the river have more than 50 times the safe level of blue-green algae. But Severn Council says there has since been some dilution of the blooms.
It's certainly cleared up in the Beatty system, and with the rain that we've had over the weekend, it seems as though it's even diluted downstream here. It's certainly a larger bloom in volume, but not as intense as the one that was in the Beatty system.
The algae outbreak will not affect the Glen Innes water supply. Samples taken upstream of the reservoir gave clear results. However, in the Ranges Valley area, landholders should take care to protect stock.
Well, certainly it wouldn't be recommended for drinking or domestic purposes for humans, and also if landholders can find an alternate water source for their stock until it clears.
Rain, which fell on the weekend, will take 24 to 48 hours to reach downstream, and Mr Thompson says it's hoped the algae will then be flushed from the river system. In the meantime, farmers should keep stock well away from the water.
The saving of the Mickey whale is the latest international issue to be tackled by Greenpeace. With 5 million members worldwide, the organisation has become a powerful tool in trying to stop the Japanese from killing off the near-extinct species. The same organisation is now at work in Newcastle, operating from a small office in Hamilton.
It's Tanya from Greenpeace Newcastle speaking.
Tanya Searle and scores of volunteers have been canvassing suburbs, signing up new members and finding out just what the local issues are.
In the Newcastle area, the council has been trying to establish an effective curbside collection recycling service, but in Lake Macquarie they don't have curbside collections, and when we've been canvassing in that area, a lot of people are really concerned about that.
On Thursday, Tanya and other representatives will be in Singleton trying to stop the construction of the Red Bank Power Station, a project being proposed by a United States company. The station is being touted as environmentally friendly because it will use coal tailings or leftover coal to produce the power.
They are producing carbon dioxide and also other toxins such as sulphur dioxide. But they're only transferring it from ground pollution to air pollution, so it's not solving the problem.
The $22,000 vehicle will replace a 20-year-old machine that was starting to show its age. The new Toyota four-wheel drive was bought with a $12,000 contribution from Wyong Council and $10,000 from Tui's, part of the $1 million given to the state's SES services through the world's biggest Barbie. For the SES, it's a vital contribution. Good equipment can save lives in crisis situations like the recent bushfires. And still on the fires, and NBN's coverage of the bushfires has been acknowledged. Deputy Regional Commander of the Newcastle region of the New South Wales Fire Brigade, John Craig, awarded News Editor Jim Sullivan and General Manager Dennis Ledbury with 2 plaques for the station's reporting and filming of the fires. Roger the downhill dodger wasn't dodging the right walls today. The radio announcer from Newcastle has announced his presence to the world, with literally hundreds of millions of people watching his dash